Hi guys, welcome to another Divi theme video. This is Jamie from System22 and webdesignandtechtips.com. Well, a couple of videos ago we did some hover effects and we used a little call to action module. I haven't got a button here, and we did the color changing one, we did a growing one, and we did an image to text one. Somebody asked us, because we were using a call to action module, can we actually just have the button appear? Well, the answer is of course yes. And I'll show you a couple of different ways of doing it today. This first module here is a call to action module. And when I hover over just the lower bit right here, the button's going to appear. If you hover anywhere else, nothing's going to happen. Just down the bottom for this one. Next one, I just added a blurb module and a call to action. When we hover anywhere over this one, the button's going to appear. And on the next one, I've got two call to action modules here. And when I hover over it, as you can see there, we've got the actual text and the button appearing. Really easy to do. So let's get started. I'm going to enable the Visual Builder. Okay, well, let's roll on down. And I'll add another little row just underneath this one. I'll put 3 little columns in it again. And in our first column, funnily enough, I'm going to use a call to action module. There it is right there. As you can see, it puts a default sort of greeny background in there. To get the button to appear, we have to put a link in. Now, obviously, put your title in here. Put what you want your button to say right there when it appears. And put whatever text you want in here. Now, to make that button appear, we need to go into the link down below. And just put your URL wherever it is you want to take people in the button link there. As soon as you do that, the button's going to appear. Always best practice, if you're linking to your own site, keep it in the same window. If you're linking off-site to somebody else's website, open it in a new tab so your site stays open. Okay, well, we've got a little call to action there, but I don't want to see that button until they hover over this lower element right here. That's really easy to do. Now, while I'm in the content, let's just change that background and match all the others. Fantastic. Okay, on this first one, we do have to do a bit of coding. There's no coding on the other two, but this one, a little bit of CSS, and I'll put any CSS I write down below the video for anybody that needs it. So in the call to action module, we can go over to our advanced, to our custom CSS here, to the module elements themselves. We look down here, we've got the promo button. So to make it disappear, because we don't want to see it initially, I'm going to say opacity, :0, which will be invisible. Opacity goes from 0, invisible, to 1, which is fully visible. And you can increment up 0.1, 0.2, etc. for different levels. As you can see, or as you can't see because it's not there, the button's disappeared. It's actually still there, it's just invisible. Now to bring it back, let's just copy that opacity. Control-C to copy. Now this is common to all modules, rows, and sections. If you hover over the dark writing within these elements, you'll see some little icons appear. If there's a little arrow, there is in our case right there. You can set a desktop state when the mouse is not on it, opacity 0. And a hover state when the mouse is on it. I'm going to just paste that opacity in there. Control-V. I'm going to change that from a 0 to a 1. So when we hover over it, it brings it back. Now, that's going to happen absolutely instantaneously when we put our mouse on it, because we're doing it with code here. Slow it down for a bit of grace. I'm going to give it a transition duration, so it sort of fades in a bit more gracefully. So I'm going to drop down one more line. I'm going to say transition, dash, duration, : let's make it 0.6 of a second, or 600 milliseconds, 0.6s. That'll work for me. Now when we change, it'll take 0.6 of a second to fade in. And that's it. All there is to that one. Let's just save that. Check it out on the front end, little purple button. Save draft or publish if you're ready. And let's exit the Visual Builder. We'll roll on down. There it is right there. Nothing will happen when I roll over this top bit. When I roll over the button at the bottom, as you can see, it's fading in. It's taking 0.6 of a second to fade in. People can click on it. When I move the mouse off, it'll take 0.6 of a second to fade back out. Nice little feature. And once you've got one, you can just copy it and change out the details, and you've still got that effect everywhere. Like I said, that little bit of CSS, I'll put down below the video for anybody that needs to copy and paste, but it's really simple. Now for our next ones, there's no coding involved in at all. What we've got here is I've got a blurb module. When we hover anywhere over it, it's going to have that button appear. And the second one's exactly the same thing. I'm just using two call to actions. So we're probably just going to go through this one, because this one is a repeat, and I'll show you exactly the difference right there. Okay, well, let's enable the Visual Builder again. I'll show you how to do this one. Well, let's roll on down. Now for this one, I'm using two modules. I'm going to use a blurb module in the top. Now you can combine any modules you want for this. I'm just going to use a blurb. Move this out of the way so we can see. I'm going to take a little bit of this writing away because I don't want too much in there. I don't want it to be too deep. So I'm going to shorten that up. Image and icon. I'm going to use an icon on mine. We'll just use that simple icon right there. And we'll just style it up a little bit. Design-wise, image and icon. I'm going to make it white, all of this, so it'll disappear into the background. And I'll bring it back by putting a background into the column. So the icon color, I'm going to make that white. I'm going to make it a lot smaller in size. I know you can't see it, but 60 pics will do me. That's what I used on my other one. And if we roll down to our text down below, this general text will do both the title and the content. I want it to be in the middle. I want it to be in light in color, and of course it's going to disappear again. Great. Let's just save this. I'm going to go into the row now. I'm going to go into the column. We're in the middle column here. I'm going to give it a blue background because we're going to use a common background for these modules. Great. And while I'm in here, I'm going to save that back to the main row settings. I'm going to put a blue background in our next one as well, because we'll be using that in a moment. Great. Well, let's go back into this module now and just give it a bit of breathing room. Go in there. Design and spacing. Top and bottom, I think I'll give it 30 pixels. Just put in the 30, it'll put in the pixels. Hit the chain, it'll do the opposite side. And let's use perhaps 20 left and right. Great. We've got our we've got our blurb module there. Now I want a button on the bottom here that when we hover over anything on here, it's going to appear. So let's do that. I'm going to hit the little dark button to add a new module. Now, funny enough, I'm not going to use a button because the spacing options on that won't let me do padding on the top without making the button bigger. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to throw another call to action in there on the bottom. I'm going to get rid of the title. I'm going to get rid of the content. I'm going to put a little link in so we've got a button. That's all I want to keep on this one. Now what we need to do to make this appear when we hover anywhere over this module is give this a lot of padding on the top, basically the same amount as we got here, which is probably 1, 2, maybe about 250 pixels. And then we got to use negative margin to bring it up so we can use that padding to trigger it. And that will become apparent when I do it. So let's go over to our design. Going to go down to spacing. Like I said, I'm guessing that's about 250. So padding on the top of this, I'm going to give 250 and it'll push it way down. As you can see, it's pushed it all the way down there. Now to bring it back up, let's give it negative 250 on the margin on the top here. So just flip it down to negative with a little arrow there, or just type in the negative symbol. And I'll try 250. I don't think it'll be quite enough for what I need. No, not quite enough. Let's go up another 50. We'll make that 300 perhaps. And as you can see, it's almost covering the top of there. If I take a bit of that background away, in fact, I'm going to take the whole thing away in a moment, you'll see what's going on. And that's pretty much where we want our button. It may adjust when we save it, so we may have to readjust. So let's get rid of this background completely. And we're left with the blue of the background there. Now initially I don't want to see this button at all. I'm sure you understand what I did there. I've got all that padding on the top, so when we hover over here we can make this disappear and reappear. Now to do that, let's go back into our design. We use filters for this. I'm going to roll down to opacity, and that's the same code as we wrote earlier on, but it's not code. And again, I'm going to roll over it. I'm going to get up the hover state. Now on desktop, we don't want to see that button at all till they hover over it. So on hover state, I want to bring it all the way back when they hover over it. Now remember, we've got all this padding up here, so anywhere that they hover anywhere on this, this will do it. I just put the background back in here. It doesn't matter really what color. I'll put a red in so you can see how much is covering it with this element here. One thing I'll mention is if you want to adjust this for tablet and mobile, hover effects usually work best on desktop, but you can use them on tablet and mobile. The only thing is they'll have to tap on them. So if you want to use this for tablet and mobile, go down to your design and spacing, hover over the padding and margin, get the little mobile phone type icon up, and you can change the amount of padding or tablet. Just roll down to where we were working, and mobile if you need to right there. Well, I'm happy with the way things were, so let's go back to desktop. But if you need to readjust for tablet and mobile, that's the way to do it. Okay, and because we did the opacity thing, we go back to desktop, we don't want to see it. Hover, we do want to see it. The time it takes to get from desktop to hover with these inbuilt hover effects is 300 milliseconds, which is pretty quick. Let's just put that back on desktop. If you want to slow this down or speed it up, you don't have to do any coding. We can go over to advanced, down to transitions. Here's a transition duration, 300 milliseconds. I'll make this the same as the other one, which is 600 mils. You can slide it, you can type in a value, or you can increment up with the little arrows right there. My speed code I tend to use for my hover effects is ease in, ease out. And we'll just save that. Now let's just check this on the front end. I've got a feeling we may need to reposition this button. So hit the little purple button, save, draft, or publish if you're ready. Let's exit the Visual Builder. Roll on down to where we were working. Here we were. I'm going to hover over. That's actually okay. I was worried that button was a little too close. We can add a bit more padding. And I've still got that color on the background there that I don't want there. So I might push that button down just a little bit more because it's not quite true to what we were seeing with the builder there. And to do that, all I'm going to do is add a little bit more padding and we should be good to go. Let's enable the Visual Builder. And we'll roll on down. Let's go back into our module here. Going to go to background. Going to get rid of that pink background we put in there for reference. And I also want to add that little bit of padding on the top. I think perhaps another 50 pixels might do it. Let's compromise. I'll call it 30 pixels. I'll up that to 80. If I get rid of my responsive devices there, just flip it to hover state and see what happens. That's fine because I think when we save it, it's going to jump up probably by about 20 pixels. So let's save that and see what happens. And we'll exit the Visual Builder. Roll on down. And there it is this time. It's pretty similar height to the one next door. When we hover over, we got that button fading in. When we take the mouse off, it's going to disappear. And that other one over here, nothing's going to happen when we hover over the content. When we hover over the base, we got that button appearing in there. So there's two options of doing that. I hope that's answered that question. I'm not going to do this third option here because I've done exactly the same thing as I did on this one, but I used two call to action modules. In the top one, I just used the actual title itself. And in the bottom one, where we just put our button in this one, I added some content. Otherwise, it's exactly the same as the one next door. So there we go. I hope that's answered those questions, and I hope you've enjoyed this and found it useful today. If you have, please give it a thumbs up, ring the bell, comment, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Don't forget, if you have any questions, pop them down below the video. I'll do my best to answer them for you, or make a little demo video just like this one. So once again, this has been Jamie with System 22 and webdesignandtechtips.com. Thanks for watching. Have a great day.